Well, hello there, paradigm shifters. I'm so grateful that you made it one more time. Wow, 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 wow. Abundantly wow. Right, Karen? Yeah.
Yep,
Yep.
we're here.
All right, well, welcome to Paradigm Shifters. We are a growing global community dedicated to shift and uplift the planet. How's that? When I first came up with it, I'm like, the planet? Are you serious? It is. It's the planet. We're going for it.
Mhm.
Yes. So I love it. This is the whatever. This is the month on abundance. And I thought, wonder who I can have who's abundantly blessed all the time. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Karen Beard. And Karen and I have been friends, cohorts, clients, whatever, for many years, and has is the owner and director of Morning Mist Retreats, where we would do retreats like so many. And the best thing that about Karen right now is
Mhm.
Karen's my kayak buddy.
Right. Every Friday.
Friday non-negotiable, which is that we're going to talk about the non-negotiables with abundance, and so it's a Friday kayak abundance. So let's take a deep breath in, everybody, and before we start, I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to turn it over to Karen. But I want you to just get centered and listen to this little story and see what it lands on your heart about this word abundance. Okay? The title is My Thoughts Are the Key to the Safe. And starts off with a quote from Michelle Obama. She says, "Remember that in difficult times, we don't give up. We don't discard our highest ideals. No, we rise up to meet them." So here's the story. An entrepreneur was in debt and couldn't figure a way out. Payroll was due, people depended on him, creditors were calling. He sat on a park bench, head down, contemplating how to save the company from bankruptcy when an old man appeared and heard his story. The old man said, "I can help you." He wrote the entrepreneur's name on a check and said to meet him back here in 1 year from today to repay him. With that, he handed over the check and disappeared. The entrepreneur was amazed to see the check was written for $500,000 and signed by John D. Rockefeller, one of the richest people in the world. The, the guy felt he could end all of his problems instantly with this money, but instead chose to place the check in his safe. Just the thought of being able to fall back on it gave him the strength and courage to find solutions. Within a couple months, he was out of debt, and within a few more months, the company was profitable again. 1 year later, he returned to the same park at the same time with the same check, excited to share his story of success. Just as the old man returned, so did a nurse chasing after him, saying, "Oh, I'm happy I caught him. I trust he wasn't bothering you. He always runs away from the home and tells people in the park he's John D. Rockefeller." Amused, he realized that when he thought he had amused, he realized that when he thought he had $500,000 to fall back on, he was business bold again. Clearly, It was not the money making the difference, but rather his belief that shifted him to successful living. How would your belief shift if you knew you could access infinite resources? Yes. And the little affirmation is, I now access and circulate God's abundance in my life. And with that story, isn't that a great story? With that, I'm going to turn it, and Karen has quite an abundant story. And and the reason that I wanted to have you come on and tell it was when we were kayaking, you got into the story part of when you weren't abundant. And I think it was in Lago Vista. And I'd like to have you start from that point there and talk about your mindset, some tools, anything that you would love. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my dear friend and buddy, Karen. It's all yours.
Thank you, Judy. I love that story about the fake John D. Rockefeller. Because the man who was in debt, that reminds me of where I was. I was living off of credit cards. I had a job, but it didn't pay enough to cover everything. And I had started morning mist retreats, and we had this big fundraiser to raise money so that we could incorporate and become a nonprofit organization. And the fundraiser didn't raise enough money. It broke even, but we didn't have the $500 we needed to incorporate. And I knew that I did not want that organization to operate like I had been operating, off of debt. So my sponsor had been telling me to get into Debtors Anonymous. And I knew that's where I needed to be. I needed to change that habit of debting so that I wouldn't be in debt anymore. It's a challenging program. And after I was in it a while, I was still living off the credit cards, using them all the time, moving the money around to 0%. Whoever would offer me 0% interest, that's where I'd move it to. So I had tons of cards because every deal that came in, I would get another card. And so I could have 0% interest, And they loved me too. They sent offers all the time because my credit was good, but I was living off of credit cards and just moving the money, and it kept accumulating, of course. So I'm in Debtors Anonymous, and I'm learning everything, and didn't have a sponsor, but they do these things called pressure relief groups. So I met with 2 people in my pressure relief group and went over my situation, and they talked me into stopping the use of those credit cards. And because I didn't believe, I go, there's no way this is going to happen. There's no way I can stop using these. How am I going to live? I don't make enough money. So on faith, I cut up all those credit cards. And I started living off of what I had, which meant selling things, talking to my creditors, like I had a car loan and a house loan, to see if they would help me. And I got my car note reduced in half. And I got my house note put aside for a few months or something. I was going to food bank. I would go to the assistance place to see what they would help me with. And, was getting money that way. I went to the church once and got some money. And, it was just whatever I could to keep surviving and not accumulating more debt. And it was amazing. And then I get this email from my brothers. And they said, we're going to celebrate Mom's 80th birthday by going on a cruise. I had $50 in savings and $50 in checking. And I sent them an email back and I said, there's no way I can do this. I don't have the money. And then I sent another email because I prayed to God and I said, would God want me on that cruise? And I said, yes, of course. I'm the only daughter in the family. Of course they want me there. Of course God would want me there. Because I'm in this program, Believing for Abundance. And I took that last $100 out of 50 out of checking, 50 out of savings, and made that $100 deposit on that cruise. Trusting that the rest would come. You know, we're probably 3 months out or something. Within that 3 months, a lady who I had written a grant for, because I was a grant writer, called me and she says, I need your help. I have $6,000 in my budget for assistance, and I want you to help me with this grant. And I said, wow, that's my answer. That was the money I needed to go on the cruise, to pay for my living expenses, and to, it was the beginning of my abundance. It was the beginning. And it's been quite a ride since then.
So what is it that you had to tell yourself in those times? Once it was there, how did you keep the momentum? Because I know you have this momentum of abundance. What is it? I know you study Course in Miracles, but tell me what. Yeah.
So I was going to Debtors Anonymous meetings every week. I would drive to South Austin because that was one that I could go to after work and, show up and listen and read the literature. And eventually I got a sponsor and I had my pressure relief groups. And those are amazing because, where else do you talk about your money? It's almost like it's taboo. You don't tell anybody what you make. You don't tell anybody, what your situation is. Nobody talks about money, but they do in minute detail. You look at your spending plan, what you're spending your money on. Are you doing self-care? And discuss ways to create more income. And it's an amazing, amazing program for anyone that has problems with debt or under earning. And I had both at the time.
So
I was an under earner, and I had debt.
This is fast forward a number of years.
Yeah, and it's a 12-step program.
Yeah.
So it's based on the 12 steps of AA. And it's just, there's a lot of resources out there that can help. And they help me, find out about food stamps and all the other things. And I would go there in my convertible because I told God, I said, there's two things I want to keep. I want to keep my car and I want to keep my house. And it happened. I was able to keep both. So I'd be, almost embarrassed driving in a convertible to the food bank to pick up food. But it's what I had to do, and I was so grateful. And they put me in touch with this program that Travis County has that provided me. They came out and did an inspection of my house, and they replaced the toilet. They replaced the heating and air conditioner. They just did a whole bunch of things. And they said, we can't do the siding on your house, but we can give you the building materials and the paint. So I had paint and siding to fix my house. And I was just so incredibly grateful. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of programs that can assist people
and
through tough times.
Yeah, and I think it's that attitude of gratitude And
Mhm.
keeping, gratitude is a feeling tone harmonious with abundance.
Exactly.
Do what you can with what you
Mhm.
have. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
tell us about what abundance means to you as far as your spiritual life goes, and how
Mhm.
spiritually abundant goes, and tell us how that works. And
Yeah,
because it's an inside out job. So
it
tell us
is.
about, and you're like a spirit, your spiritual life has grown with the abundance as well. So tell us a little about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's having that spiritual connection too. And I was living in Lago Vista. I was single at the time. My daughter would live with me for a little while and help out, and then she'd leave, and she was in and out. Um, but I was in this Bible study group, and they occasionally they'd meet in other people's houses, and I'd go into this beautiful house, and I was just I go, there's no way I could have women over to my house. I'm so embarrassed. I just was kind of like run down, and things were broken, and so one of the thoughts that I had from God was, take care of what you have and more will come. And I don't know if I read that somewhere or what, but I started thinking about, well, what can I do? What can I do to make my home feel better? And I had a friend who's kind of psychic, and she says the energy started shifting in my house. Once I had that attitude, things started shifting, and then the abundance started coming. I mean, having all those building materials was an abundant thing. I didn't pay for it. I put in the labor. I had other people that helped me, and paint that house and get it looking good, and it just transformed everything inside and out.
And I think what you said right there, it's that there was an energy shift. And when you
Mhm.
made your home, you made your
Mhm.
home welcome. Amen.
Mhm.
Something like that.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I
and
mean,
I was at a point where I could have retreats in my house and invite people and be grateful that I could share it with people.
that's the key. That's the key.
So it's
Okay, now that
shifted.
was that. Now tell us. I know you've got so many abundance stories. Tell us this abundance of relationship. We know the backstory, but if you don't mind, because I think for me, you've got the most gorgeous, beautiful relationship with Ken. Is that an abundance factor right there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I was divorced 3 times and totally desperate about what to do. It's like, if I get married again, it's just going to go down the toilet like all the others. And I read this book called Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. And it talked about another 12-step program called Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. And I'm a love addict. I would marry anybody just to get the love. Um, that program totally transformed my life. It took 8 years of working the program before I was able to get married again. So I was single for 8 years. My ex-husband was an alcoholic. The one before that was a rageaholic. The one before that was a super nerd, and you couldn't even communicate with him. So I had the gamut of crazy marriages. And 8 years of working that program, and then meeting this, I dated too. Some of the time I dated, and even those were like, I was going, I'm grateful because at least I didn't marry him, because 3 relationships went down the tubes too, of dating relationships. And then I met Ken, and I was ready. And we dated for 2 years before we got married. I was taking it slow. I was like talking to other people and the people in my program each step because I wanted to do it differently. I didn't want the same thing to happen. So, and then marrying him, oh my God, talk about abundance. We bought a home together. It's beautiful. It has everything we've ever wanted because we had it built from scratch. And God helped us keep that home because there were times when, I don't know how we're going to make payment on that, but I was trusting God. And it always happened.
Yes.
Always happened.
It's
things would happen. Things would fall into place to allow us to keep our home.
And one of the things I do know about you is that you are a giver. Your heart is so big, and that it's that law of circulation that we keep talking about. It's like the more you give, the more you receive, and that, I think that's a real important part of it. So let's go and we're on this timeline, and tell us what you're about doing now, because this next week or something, you just because your dreams. One of the things I know about Karen, she's been a client of mine for quite a while, is that your visions grow and grow and grow. With your abundance, you're like, oh, here's another vision. Oh, here's another vision. But tell us about your vision now, because this is in 2021. And where you're about ready to take off to. Tell us about you and Ken, and it just keeps manifesting. Go ahead.
So my current vision, and I've had it for a long time, but it's been growing and growing and growing, is to live in Hawaii. So some of the things that were stopping us was we had elderly parents that needed to be taken care of. And I was a caretaker for my mom, and Ken was helping out with his mom and our dad. And within the past 6 years, all of them have passed. I was working. Ken has a job too. And and I recently retired. So that opened another door. So I'm holding this vision. And right now I'm holding it for both Ken and I, because he's kind of waffling and worrying about things. He's and he's facing fears because he's never moved other than the house we're living in. He's moved once. He's owned one home. He's had one marriage, and he's not used to change. So he has a lot of fears. But I am trusting God. God has given me this vision to live in Hawaii. And we are going there in a week and a half for a 17-day visit, longest ever. And we're going to spend 2 weeks on Maui, where I will want us to live and look at houses. We have a realtor we've been talking with, a mortgage broker who's already qualified us. And we're going to see what happens. And maybe Ken will get a job there. It could happen.
Oh,
I am open to God's abundance, and we'll see what happens. And we're just so thrilled about it. And this trip, which is another thing that's unusual about it, is my daughter's going to be with us for one of the weeks. So she's never been to Hawaii. I'm so happy for her. She's a world traveler, and I just want to share it with her.
What a story. I just love it. I just love it. And it's because you do the work. And it's not just sporadically. Every day. Sometimes every 5 minutes. And it's doing the work. Using the principles. Knowing that it's an abundant universe. And I call you like my magnificent manifester. So just one little thing that Karen let me in on today is, and you guys all know, okay, so she sent me this email today about kayaking in Maui.
Yes. They have kayaking tours all over the place.
And yes. And because Karen and I, the whole thing with the kayak thing is, I got one first when I turned 70, and then Karen goes, well, I think I'm going to get one. And I'm like, and then it's just snowballed. This is our 8th month of every week. And we get abundantly blessed by nature, by God, by our health, by our relationships that we make. And I just one other little keep going. One other little thing is that I love the fact that in your home in Maui, right where Oprah lives,
Exactly.
that
Hmm.
you are manifesting a little. Is it called Ohana?
Ohana. We're going to have a home and a guest house called an Ohana. Ohana means family, so that people can visit us.
And guess who's the first guest?
Judy's got number one.
That's what comes with walking the journey and taking those limiting beliefs, and because they come up, of course, we're human. And it's like go back into the work, go back into the faith, faith, faith. So this is so much fun. So Karen, what would you love? And you know what? We are well over 1,000 strong in Paradigm Shifters, actually 1,200 plus. What would you love to have this global community hold for you? Anything you want. Here's the menus wide open. What would you just love?
I am loving the fact that Ken's attitude to Hawaii, for living in Hawaii, has shifted. His fears are gone, and we are moving there. Amen.
Aloha. Oh, this is so much fun. Well, thank you so much for being a part of our Abundance Month. And I just can't, I just love you so much, Karen. And I'm so glad that you're sharing your story with the globe. We can hold under like this little thing called Texas, right? But you know what? What you did is like, oh, if it's if you can do it, we can all do it. Amen. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you, Judy.
Amen.
Amen.